Super cool. All right. Well, so what I wanted to do, I mean, there's a lot of stuff for that I think would be important for associate deans, and other folks and the other leaders in the academic academic affairs side that I think would be important to know, and probably questions that you all have had like rolling around in your head about concurrent enrollment. So I'm going to go over some things. I had emailed everybody before we scheduled this meeting, just to see what kind of questions you had. And so a lot of the content is based on that. And then there were some other things that I'm like, oh, academic departments should probably know this. So we're going to go through all that today. And but feel free to pause me at any time, ask any questions that come up, and we'll just discuss those. So in order to make this a little more interactive, hi, Jerry. We are going to play like a little Mythbusters type thing. So we did this a little while back for the counselors. So what you're going to need is your phone. Hopefully, y'all got your phone or your computer or whatever. But if you've ever used Poll Everywhere, we're going to be using that here in just a second. So all you have to do is send a text to this thing I'll give you. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is sort of the broad vision of concurrent enrollment, because there are a lot of different takes on what is concurrent enrollment and why are we even doing it? What is the purpose of concurrent enrollment? And if you ask a parent or a student or a teacher, they may have a different sort of a different take, although we've made some intentional efforts over the last probably like 5 years to try to get everybody on board with this this vision that I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to ask, so go ahead and pull out your phones, and even those of you who are on Teams right now, you can pull out your phones, and what you're going to do is send a text message to FancyDog828, or you'll text FancyDog828 at that number. I think that's how it works. I don't know. I don't do very much text messaging. How does this work? So you send a message, I think, to 37607, and you type in the text FancyDog828. So then that'll join you, and then you type A, B, C, or D as your response. So we'll give it a try. So go ahead and you can text FancyDog828 at that number. And here's the question. So the main focus of concurrent enrollment is multiple choice: to save students and parents time and money by helping them take as many classes as they possibly can, to make college as easy as possible, to ensure that students have an authentic experience that helps them transition to college after high school and helps them select the classes they need for their chosen pathway. And then last of all, to help students avoid attending SLCC if possible and go straight to the university. So go ahead, take a second, see it. We'll test this out and see if it works. I know it's worked before because we've done it with counselors. So again, you just type in, for the phone number is going to be 37607. And oh yes, it worked. All right, somebody got it. And then Fancy Dog, and then you'll type in your response. Okay, is everybody figured it out? Did you give it a go? Well, at least we had one person, and that person, or maybe there's more, maybe everybody, you guys all got it right. So the drive, like when I started with concurrent enrollment, the big drive, or the sort of the perception of concurrent enrollment was concurrent enrollment saves time and money. Therefore, hoard as much as you possibly can, because the more you get, the more money you save. And so students were taking an enormous amount of credit, and it was just a mishmash of credit. There was nothing that really applied towards one specific degree. So you would get students that could take, 30, 40, 50 credits of concurrent enrollment, and then they transition to college and they're like, oh, well, hey, great, you got like 5 of your generals done. You now have to finish all these other generals, and then you've got to work on your requirements for your degree. So by the time they get halfway through their bachelor's degree, they've already exhausted all of their federal financial aid eligibility, which would cover 150% of the credits required to get a degree. And so it was creating problems. And but at the same time, like, the idea of save time, save money is what drives the community to want concurrent enrollment. Like parents want concurrent enrollment because they want to save their kids time and money. So what we tried to do is sort of refocus that energy from save time to save money to yes, you can save time and you can save money if you select the classes you're going to take with purpose and intention. And then what we started to do is drive in the high schools with the concurrent enrollment instructors that concurrent enrollment is as much about teaching an authentic college experience and delivering the content as is outlined by the academic departments as it is delivering a college experience, not a high school experience. Because you can all give them a copy of the CCO and the syllabus and say, here, teach this. And you go out there and you're like, this is a total high school experience because they're helping them a little too much. They're allowing a lot of flexibility. They're not holding them to deadlines, and the students aren't really advocating. They're holding their hands a lot. So we did some research and worked with the Community College Research Center at Columbia University to try to develop a program to help teachers teach the college content as outlined by you all, but to do that as a college experience and not a high school experience. That's why we created the liaison model we have today to try to put as much focus on making it a college experience as delivering the content accurately and according to the department standards. So that is our big focus. And in fact, I'm going to jump out of the presentation here and just show you on our website. So let's open the browser what we have defined and what has been sort of the primary focus of our program over the last 5 or 7 years. So under about concurrent enrollment, there's the about. So what we do and why we do it. And like I said, this is our guiding statement. The SLCC Concurrent Enrollment Department partners with high schools to deliver a college experience that prepares high school students with the skills and the courses that they need to navigate the challenges of higher education and to complete a meaningful degree or certificate. So anytime something comes up, we'll ask ourselves, does it help us achieve that? And if it doesn't, then we'll try to tweak it or avoid it or whatever, because we really want to make sure that students are learning the college content and that when they finish concurrent enrollment and transition over here, they don't fall off because they're like, I don't know how to do college. This is totally foreign. Like I'm failing my first class, but they transition over and they're like, I know how to do this. Like I can meet deadlines. I can advocate for myself if I start to struggle. I know where to get help. Like all of these sort of what the high schools call soft skills, like the things that are not like, you know, that are not intentionally taught in the class, with these soft skills to navigate challenges of life. They learn those in concurrent enrollment, so they become then better college students when they transition to college. Okay, that's enough of that. Any questions about our focus as a concurrent enrollment program? Does that sound like we're going in the right direction? Okay, good. And we feel like we are because like I said, we want concurrent enrollment to really be a powerful tool in helping students to take classes intentionally and learn the skills so that when they end up in your programs after high school, they're ready to rock and roll and persist and complete and move on to a meaningful degree or certificate or career. Okay. Here's the next one. So get ready to text in your answer. Students are on their own when it comes to selecting concurrent enrollment classes that they want. Is that true or is it false? So we got false there. Why is that false? That's exactly right. In the past, I think it was like, you know, in the high schools, you'll have the course selection process. And during course selection, usually the students and parents are at home trying to figure out which classes they want, or they'll fill out a card and say, this is what I want. And then the high school counselor was just trying to say, okay, well, does this work towards their high school graduation requirements? And that's all they considered. It's like if they did concurrent enrollment, they didn't look to say, well, does this actually count towards a degree or a certificate? But over the last couple of years, and so I should rewind a little bit, we have an advising model, and that advising model has gone through massive changes. The way that it was 5 years ago was those top academic performing students whose parents went to college and are like cracking the whip to try to get them to get their associate degree before they graduate. Those students would meet with one of our advisors and they would come up with a plan to complete their associate degree and get the New Century Scholarship. Well, the New Century Scholarship went away, and we said, what about all the other students that are accumulating a bunch of credits? So we ran some data, and we found at the time there were like 1,700 students that had taken 12 or more credits. And of those, we had probably 150 that had an academic plan that had met with an advisor. And our advisors, there was no way on earth that 5 advisors could advise 1,700 students that are in different high schools across the valley. So we said, well, we need to fix this problem. We met together with counselors, like we grabbed a counselor from every major district, and then the district counseling person who's over counseling for the entire district. And we said, here's the problem, how do we fix this? So then over the next year, and this has been last year, we worked together to develop a new advising model to try to reach the 1,700 and then beyond that, the full 11,000 students. And so I'll just show you really quickly what this advising model now looks like and what the plan is moving forward. So back here on the Concurrent Enrollment website, we have a button for advising. This is the student advising page. So there are, let's see, we've got 4 steps to advising. So the first one, and this is for students who know little to nothing about concurrent enrollment, and it's their very first experience, or like their very first experience taking a concurrent enrollment class. So there's an orientation, and this orientation goes through everything that they need to know. It's like 20 minutes, as we try to make it short for their attention span. We also have PowerPoint templates that high schools can use, so they can either watch a video, the high school can deliver a presentation, or college representative can go out and deliver a presentation. And it talks about everything you need to know to be successful in your very first concurrent enrollment class. So what are the different processes? What do you do if you start to struggle? And just a few things like that. So this is for the masses. And then once a student has completed a semester of concurrent enrollment and they decide, hey, you know, I did pretty well and it really wasn't as scary as I thought, and I learned some skills and I think I'm ready to try this again. So once they've completed a semester, then they meet with the high school counselor to build a plan. And they do that using our MyCE system. There's an academic planning tool that helps them plan out the requirements for the Gen Ed certificate of completion, focusing on general education. Or they can choose to explore in an area of study, and then it shows the concurrent enrollment classes sort of grouped out by different areas. So like business might be an area, or art, or science, or whatever. So if they're going to take classes, they're just focusing on that one specific area. That way they don't accumulate a bunch of random credits that don't apply. So we've created a series of videos here that walk them through what is academic planning, how do you build a plan, and then specifically, like we walk through step by step, how do they actually create that plan in MyCE. Once a student completes the plan, then at that point, the college advisor and the high school counselor receives an automated email to go in and review to make sure that it works well with the high school schedule, and then they can proceed with the plan. And that happens, they continue along that path until the junior year or later, spring semester of the junior year in high school. At that point, they check in with the counselor and they go through how to transition your plan from MyCE to DegreeWorks, so that they can do an audit to check to make sure that they're on target for achieving whatever the certificate or the associate degree, whatever they're working towards. And also it hopefully connects them to Salt Lake Community College, so then that pushes them over to transition here and finish the certificate, but continue taking classes here at the college. So that's the new model. We worked with, like I said, a counselor from every district. We piloted it this year. We saw we had a few issues we need to work out. So during the next year, the advisors that we have, there's like 5 of them, are going to each work with a different high school. And what they're going to do, we realized that we need to go beyond the counselor and collaborate with the counselor and the coordinator who oversees the concurrent program. and try to figure out what is the best system at their school. Once we do that and get things working successfully this year, then we'll sort of broadly expand those best practices to all of the other high schools. But we are broadly launching this model to our entire service region this coming year. And some of them will be testing and they'll be trying and failing, and those others will be working with more intentionally to try to figure out best practices. So yeah, go ahead.
Decide which classes go in which.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Let me show you one other tool that we created. Because with concurrent enrollment, we don't have the whole broad range of all the classes the college offers. So we only got around 100 classes. So what we did is just tried to pick like areas. So I'm going to show you our certificate of completion checklist, which is a handout that sort of shows how we've clustered things. And if you disagree, like I'm totally open to shifting things around. The thing with like a lot of the concurrent classes is like this class applies to your area and your area and your area. So it like spreads in multiple different places.
So the only reason I say is most of the concurrent classes in my area aren't actually in the programs in my area. So say
Yeah.
10, take that not a class that a physics major takes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so what, and really, I mean, there's no science to it. I went through and said, this probably fits in this area of interest. And really the intention is try to keep students from just randomly selecting a bunch of credits that don't matter to them or that don't apply to their degree. So here's the certificate of completion checklist that we put together. As it loads. Gen Ed certificate of completion. Yep, that's right. So we've got each of the Gen Ed categories, and I think Rachel, you had worked on an earlier version of this, and then with the new changes we went through. And what we did is we added all of the concurrent classes that fulfill a Gen Ed requirement and AP classes that will fulfill a Gen Ed requirement if they get a 3 or higher, and put those into each of the Gen Ed categories. And then on the back of the sheet is the exploring in your area of interest. So you're like, I don't know if I'm going to go to college. I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if I want to do my generals yet. I just want to take college credit. Okay, well, focus on just one area. Don't do accounting and finance, film production, computer science, visual art and design, engineering, because you're going to get a bunch of credits that ultimately you're not going to apply to whatever you do. So this is how we've clustered them. I'll zoom in just a little bit there so you can see a little better. Hopefully, it's still pretty small. Those, I updated this just a few months ago based on the awards chart, but that, I don't know if the awards chart, it seemed like it was both the USHE one and the college one. I kind of looked at the two and they're like, oh, well, no, this isn't accurate, but this is. And yeah, so if you want to double check it for me and send me any corrections, that'd be awesome. So yeah, so I mean, just going back to what Jonathan said, I mean, some of these classes, like the intro to business, is going to apply in multiple areas, but really just for guiding a student to keep them from getting themselves in trouble is the intention of this. What would be really super cool though? So the other day we were the forensics department was making some big changes to their forensics class and their forensics program, and they had gone through and they were showing us some of the requirements for the class, and it's like, or for the degree. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, 10 of those classes are concurrent enrollment classes. So could we not create for some of these programs a checklist that includes concurrent enrollment and then the classes beyond, so a student could say, ooh, forensics, I'm interested in that. So I'm going to take this class and this class and this class in high school. And then I'll move over to Salt Lake Community College and finish these last few classes. I think a simple checklist in certain programs that include a lot of concurrent enrollment classes could really help attract kids to your programs. But somebody just needs to build it. And we're actually working on something like that with East High School, who's been like anti-concurrent, like the whole Salt Lake district has been anti-concurrent, it seems like, for years. But suddenly something's changed, and East is like, we really need to strengthen our concurrent program and we need to build pathways. So they got a grant to, it was with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and United Way, to try to build out pathways that basically go from the student takes these classes in middle school, that lead to these classes in high school, that lead to these concurrent enrollment classes, that lead to these classes at Salt Lake Community College, that lead to this program at Westminster or the U, and finish them off. And then build a checklist so a student early on can start like checking things off and work along a pathway early on. And I think that's an area that I really think that we should consider exploring and creating if we really want to leverage concurrent enrollment as a recruitment mechanism into specific programs. I mean, it's already recruiting. I think it's about 30% of students that do concurrent enrollment end up at Salt Lake Community College, which you're like, oh, well, doesn't seem like a big number. Well, then it's like 5% or end up at the U, and 3% end up at UVU, and like 1% at some of the other institutions, and all the rest don't go anywhere. So we attract the majority, and so they end up as students here at the college. But we haven't done a lot intentionally to really recruit students into programs. Pathways could be a really effective way to do that. Okay, questions on advising. That's our advising model. We've created a whole page for counselors that has a bunch of resources for them that they can use to help them guide them. And yeah. I think that BYU and Westminster probably handle it like any institution outside of the state of Utah, where it's just they'll look at the classes and they'll just decide if it applies towards whatever degree. And Rachel could probably speak to that way more than I could.
Students are creating a transcript, an official college transcript. It does not connotate did they take a concurrent enrollment or not. So looking at transfers of BYU or private institutions, BYU rarely takes any transfer credit from Salt Lake Community College or anywhere else. Their model is freshman to senior. So our students struggle with transferring credit in general. Westminster is a little easier, Ensign College is a little easier, but BYU proper, BYU Provo is not a transfer respective institution.
Yeah, one of the things that we encourage students to do through our advising model is to begin with the end in mind. So we try to encourage them to say, first of all, what career do you want to end up in? What major is going to be best, and which school should you go to? And if they're like, well, I want to be a chemist and I want to go to BYU, then the advisor would say, well, you know what, it's probably a good idea to call BYU and say, you know, I've got the opportunity to take these concurrent enrollment classes. Which one should I take? And then BYU could give them some guidance and say, well, English 1010 is probably the only thing that we're going to take, or English 2010. Everything else, like, you're going to have to take our classes. So we try to guide students that way whenever they're selecting concurrent or going through the advising model. Okay, any other questions on advising tools for students and counselors and that kind of thing? Okay. Anybody on Zoom have any questions about advising? Just unmute yourself and we should be able to hear you if everything's working. And there's nothing in the chat there. Remember? Okay, cool. All right, we're going to talk then about the right of first refusal. So the state of Utah is divided into specific service regions, and every higher ed institution is sort of in charge of that. They own that service region in a way. So Salt Lake Community College and the U own the Salt Lake Valley. That is our service region. The agreement, though, between the U and us is that we sort of have the right to the Salt Lake Valley and offering concurrent enrollment. UVU's got Utah Valley. Weber has got Ogden and Weber area, and then USU seems to have like everywhere all across the state. So does Snow, rural regions. So any high school in our service region must work with us first to offer concurrent enrollment classes. And actually, I'm going to pause for a second because I want to ask you all some questions to see kind of where you're at on, let's see, is that the right one? Yeah, I'm going to use these to guide the rest of the discussion. Pause myself. So here's a question. Pull out your phones. A high school in the Salt Lake Valley applies to teach Humanity 1100, but we deny them because they don't have a master's degree with 18 graduate credits in humanities. The high school claims Weber will approve the instructor. working with Weber is not an option. Is that true or false, given the right of first refusal? What do you think? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, we got a false. All right, so this one is a little bit tricky. So if, because we have the right of first refusal, they apply to us. If we deny them, then they do have the ability to go outside of our service region and work with another institution. So it used to be that high schools would do this institution shopping. They would call up Weber and they'd call UVU and they'd call Snow and then they come back to me and say, well, you know, you require a master's in 18, but you know what? Snow says they'll approve my instructor with a bachelor's degree. And a lot of times they're just calling our bluff. Like we'd say, okay, fine, you know, go with Snow, and then Snow would deny them. So just in the last couple of years, some new legislation went through that basically required if we denied an instructor that had a master's in 18, then they could appeal it to the commissioner's office. And if the commissioner overrode us, then we had no choice but to approve the instructor because the commissioner had overridden it with a group of CAOs and the commissioner. So what I was doing once that change occurred is if we denied them, I'd give them the appeal paperwork and say, you can go to the commissioner's office, because most of them didn't have the master's in 18. But just recently, I think we had denied an instructor and we sent him to the commissioner's office, and Sid Grua came back to me and said, well, you can't send him to the commissioner's office, and you can deny them, but you can't stop them from going elsewhere. Because I was denying the right of first refusal because they had gone with us. So I'm like, okay, what I decided to do is call them on their bluff, so they would apply, we would deny them, and I'd say, okay, you want to go to Weber, like go to Weber, and if Weber says that they will approve you, then have their academic department email me and say we are okay with approving this faculty member, and then I'll go back to the associate dean and say, look, Weber's going to approve them. Do you want to change your decision? So I've done that. We actually had one come in not too long ago. It was for, I can't remember the discipline or the course, but anyway, reached out to the academic department. They went to Snow. Snow sent a letter and said, well, this teacher's been teaching AP for 10 years. We feel like that's enough and we're going to approve them. And this is from the academic department. So I went back to the SLCC academic department, said, do you want to change your decision? And they're like, no, we feel like that master's in 18, without that, they're not going to be able to teach the way we need to, given our accreditation. So I approved the right of first refusal. They're now teaching through Snow because of their AP experience. In a little bit, I'll talk about some new legislation that may force our hands a little bit. We might have to reconsider how we approve instructors. So, but I won't talk about that yet. Let's go do another right of first refusal scenario. So high schools in the Salt Lake Valley have been working with UVU to offer course 1010 that SLCC hasn't offered. We now want to offer it. We can give UVU the boot and tell the high schools they have to work with us. True or false? That's right. Yep. So absolutely true. If we decide to offer it, we do need to be considerate. So if we decide to offer it, typically what will happen is I'll notify them and say, hey, guess what, everybody, we're going to offer this course. We submit it to USBE. And once they approve it, which takes, well, I'm not going to say how long it takes because there's a question coming up. They approve it, and then we've given them time to transition over to us. So we do want to be mindful. We don't want to just pull things out from underneath them when they're comfortable working with another institution. We did this with history. So there was History 2700 and 2710 was the class that I think Snow was offering that in our service region. So History 2700 and 2710 fulfill the AI requirement, but it's 6 credits. They only need 3 to fulfill AI. So they're getting excess credits, and those classes are for history majors. So it's not a really a gen ed course. It's gen ed course, but it's specifically for history majors. So unless they're going to major in history, it's really not the best thing for them. So I worked with the history department. We adjusted history 1700 so that it aligned with the high school core requirement and got it approved. And then we went to all the high schools and said, we're not offering history 2700, 2710, but we do have history 1700, which fulfills the AI. We don't feel like 2700, 2710 is in the best interest of the students. This is a good substitute that aligns to the exact same high school course. We need you to work with us. And so Snow pulled out and we began offering that class. So we can absolutely do that if we decide down the road that we want to offer a course that someone else is offering. Okay, last one for right of first refusals. High school in the Salt Lake Valley wants to work with Weber to offer a class that SLCC doesn't currently offer through concurrent enrollment. We must approve their request. Yeah, that was a fast one. Okay, so that one is actually true. So if someone wants to work with Weber and we don't even offer the class, like it's not even on the books at Salt Lake Community College, we have to approve the request so they can go work with someone else, because it makes no sense for us to say, sorry, like you can't go work with Weber and we're never going to offer this class and we're going to hold up like our guard and prevent you from offering this opportunity. Yeah, you go for it. Yeah, okay, that's right. Yes. So currently, if we down the road decide that we're going to create this new program that we haven't had before, and it's going to include that class, then again, we can go and we can pull back on the RFR and say, you need to come and work with us. So.
You can go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our curriculum, and we are going to decide, do we want to do it in via concurrent or not?
Yeah.
Like I said, I read that differently. If it's in our curriculum, that's one thing. Is it offered through concurrent enrollment? Is that next level?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about instructor qualifications. So I guess I didn't finish editing the slide. Ignore the subheading there. Implications of House Bill 335. So House Bill 335 went through this legislative session last minute, like in the last week. It was Ann Milner, right? Ann Milner, who used to be the president at Weber, sent through this bill that changed the qualification requirements to teach concurrent enrollment. Now, the question, once that went through, because it went through so quickly, a lot of people were like, well, is she really meaning the way that it could be potentially be interpreted? And a lot of us are like, well, I don't know if she really would intend what she's intending by this legislation. So we're trying to interpret it, but I'll give you some background from what I've heard. Weber had, because she used to be the president of Weber, she had some academic departments that were very stringent on the requirements to teach concurrent enrollment and, well, to teach anything, like, something like a PhD, 20 years of experience teaching, or 10 years of teaching, 20 years in the industry, like just ridiculous requirements that don't seem ridiculous to the department, but from Ann Milner's perspective are like, these are prohibitive when you're trying to only teach a foundational level entry course and that's it. So she said, I've had enough of this, and went ahead and slid through this legislation. Let me show you what this says. Hopefully you can see that up there. So the big change is that in the past, it was that a teacher had to have a master's degree with 18 graduate credits in the discipline, or if it was a CTE course, they had to have an industry certification or qualifying experience that was defined by the academic field. And then it said, or they could have qualifying experience as determined by the institution, and add the things in green listed there, number of years of teaching experience in the discipline, so on. What she did, so you can read it now, is they have to have a master's degree in the discipline, or they have to have qualifying experience as defined below, the number of years of teaching experience, Doesn't say in the discipline. So if a teacher has 20 years teaching and they've taught English and now they want to teach a physics class, does this preclude them from doing that? I don't know. So number of years teaching experience, the student performance on qualifying test scores or AP exams on courses that the LEA teaches. So they can teach whatever class, doesn't say in the discipline, continuing education in a master's degree or higher in any academic field or other criteria established by the institution of higher education. So it doesn't say and, it says or, and it doesn't say anything about the discipline. Now we got this, the concurrent enrollment directors came together and I said, I've got some major concerns here, because if you interpret this, if high school interpreted it to say, oh, well, any good teacher could now teach this class, do they have ground to come back and say, you know what, you denied our instructor, but according to the law, like this is what it says. Yushi said, well, surely that's not what Ann Milner's intent was. Surely she must have meant in the discipline. So in the concurrent enrollment contract, now it sort of what's the word? So it doesn't really quote state law. What's the word I'm looking for? What's that? Yeah, it references the law, but it says, so it adds the number of years of teaching experience in the discipline, student performance on qualifying AP scores in the discipline. So they add that to each one. And it also doesn't say, it doesn't imply or, but it implies that an academic department can still look at the master's in 18, but they should consider these other criteria. And so I asked Sid, I said, well, so could an academic department then say, okay, well, I looked at the master's in 18. I considered, sure, they've got 20 years of teaching experience in art. Their students performed well on the AP art exam, and they've done a little bit of continuing education in art. So I considered that, and I'm still going to go back to the master's in 18 because it says should consider. And nobody's really going to know what you do, but I would say that it's probably a good idea that we start maybe thinking about these other criteria a little more seriously, because we'll do what we do. And then if Ann Milner is satisfied with our interpretation and our actions on the law, then we'll be good. Maybe they'll refine it and say in the discipline, but if not, she might come back and say, okay, well, I guess I wasn't clear enough. So let me add now, like these things. I'm going to clarify that I meant any good teacher could teach it. So that's the law. And I think we, as at least those of you who are deans and associate deans, probably need to think about and discuss, like, how are we going to approach this? If we have an instructor that applies, they've got a master's in a related discipline, but not the coursework we want, but they've been teaching AP and they have some additional experience or whatever, or coursework, continuing education in a field, then that's something that you're going to probably have to think about, lest we see repercussions from it. So questions on HB 335? This was, oh, are there? Okay, yes, great. I mean, I had like tons of questions and huge major concerns when I saw this. Well, okay, so.
Back to the, before this part, is the right of refusal.
Wait, so read that one more time.
Rights of refusal regarding disagreements with content.
Okay, so, and maybe Angela, if you want to unmute and clarify, I'll just, so are you saying that if a teacher or if an institution doesn't like our course content, and so they say we want to work with Snow because we like their content better, is that what you're asking?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing anyone other than you, Brandon. So I'll basically ask the question. Essentially, yes. So if we say, hey, everything's great, the instructor's approved, here's the course content, and they say, yeah, this course content isn't as closely aligned to what we are already teaching as Snow. So we're just going to go with snow because we don't like that we're going to have to make as many changes with your content as we would with theirs. Do they have the right then to go with snow? Or
No,
okay.
they
go ahead.
don't. We would deny that right of first refusal, because the process of creating a concurrent enrollment course, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, there has to be a high school course and a college course that align at least 90%, unless it's CTE, it's 80%. So our content, theoretically, according to the Utah State Board of Education, aligns at least 80%. They shouldn't have to make any modifications. They just may not like our textbook. They may not like some of the approaches to it, but our content fulfills all of the requirements in the high school content. Yeah, the answer would be no on that right of first refusal, and I would deny it. So, good question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Policy about general education and 18 units and graduate classes. Then does this bill change our 401 policy?
That's a good question, and that I don't know the answer to. That would probably be a good question for legal counsel to look at and weigh in on. Rachel, do you have?
Processes or 70 is gen ed. So Ashley, what are you really?
Ashley, did you hear that question
No,
from
I
Rachel?
didn't hear what Rachel said, but yeah, no, my question is about gen ed because a lot of the concurrent enrollment courses are general education courses. And so the current R401 suggests that like the gen ed, like that there are requirements like 18 credit units that like it's required to be able to teach these types of classes. Maybe that's in the R470, maybe I misspoke the right section, but like there's indication in the UC policy about this 18 credits, which I'm assuming is why this bill has this 18 credits in it originally, is like if someone is now teaching without those 18 credits in the discipline, is that course now partially violating USHE policy because the instructor is not actually qualified to teach a general education course under USHE policy?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Or am I misunderstanding that current USHE policy?
Yeah, was there another comment that?
Like other board policies, those will be updated over time to align with state statute. So, I'm trying to think of one right now. Like the legislation that named Dixie State College, Utah Tech University, all the policies that reference Dixie State had to be altered to Utah Tech. So when we say over time, that's relative because there will be intent language. There will be further thoughts around that. So teaching qualifications that I think is like in the 160s or the 3 areas will align, I think, once intent comes together. And so that's the fun bit of gen ed and the interaction with majors, right? I would think, and this is me thinking, this is not official rule, dictation, anything, okay? We want to validate that the instructors have content area expertise first, and then a layer of gen ed for the sake of gen ed. So if it's a comm course, Ashley, we want to validate that those faculty have the comm knowledge before the CM designation. Barnes is next to me, so I'm going to pick on physics, right? We want to make certain that the instructor who's instructing and teaching in physics has the physics content before the PS. Okay. Does that address
Thank you,
any of your questions? Are you okay there?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Did I violate anything there?
No, that's fantastic. And a lot of it is just, we're gonna have to wait and see, because there was some other legislation that went through for with right of first refusals and what was it? Sensitive materials that conflicted with some other legislation. I think because it just went through so quickly, there were a lot of things that weren't considered. So I think those will probably be worked out. Hopefully we meet the intent of the law by whatever we practice, and she doesn't have to get any more prescriptive on what we're required to do. So anyway, that's a good question.
I mean, I have a request from a person with a master's degree, not in the field that we're talking about. Not in the education field that we're talking about, and I wonder if that person knows.
Yeah, that's.
Otherwise, it's been really clear. I was about to deny them. But if looking at line C there, that's really clear.
Yeah. So I mean, probably like if you get somebody's got a master's degree and it doesn't have the 18, but then you look at some other criteria. Okay. Yeah, if somebody has they have zero coursework in the discipline, you look at some of these other categories and you're like, I can't ethically like approve them, then deny them. But I think it probably would be good if somebody is close on the denial and you look at the other criteria and you're like, okay, I can probably justify it with that, then that may be a good move. I mean, it's not the ideal move, but given the legislation and how we have to balance politically what Ann Milner is pushing, there's a lot of unknowns. It's just something to be aware of and consider as you're reviewing applications. I mean, most of the applications are through now. We don't have to worry about it. Next year is when. Yeah. Now what to do? Yeah. In fact, so this legislation came out, and then I got the one from the other department where UTU approved them, and they had all their AP experience listed, and the high school called me and said, well, they've been teaching AP for a long time. I'm like, shoot, did they read the legislation? Are they starting to push back? Now, I will say that Nathan Auck, who's the Utah State Board of Education representative for concurrent enrollment, just like Sid Grew is for USHE, he reached out to the high schools and said, here's the legislation. Here's a potential interpretation. I mean, what do you all think? And they're like, we wouldn't push an instructor through like that. Like, we are looking for our top instructors that we think would qualify. Now, that doesn't always align with what we think, but he said, don't worry, they're not going to be willy-nilly and saying, oh, good, we've got all these new instructors who have no experience in the discipline. We're going to send them through because we can. Most high schools really want to ensure that it's a good experience for the students and that they know what they're doing. So, but their interpretation is sometimes different than ours. As you've all gotten applications before where you're like, this isn't even close to applying. Like, why did they submit it? And they've got some reason in their head. They probably look at the AP courses they've been teaching and saying, well, they should qualify. But anyway, it is what it is. And we just have to be aware and try to think through as we review applications what the right thing is to do.
So Brandon, another question, sorry. So
no, you're good.
On some of these other areas, the application that they fill out that we review in my CE, it doesn't say the number of, I mean, and I wouldn't expect it to, right? This is Brandon. The associate dean or chair in any one area, their time is already strapped. And so it's sort of now, because I think the most recent feedback I had was, well, get back to this high school and figure this out, figure out what this is, their endorsements or their time or whatever. And that's now added things, which I suppose is important and will do, but I don't want it to think that time is free.
Yeah.
Right. And now figuring out all of these other details, it takes time. And I think that they respond in ways that they hope will make us happy, right? If it wasn't exactly what, I mean, I don't know exactly how to ask. So it would be nice if there's a mechanized way to get some of these things, right? What are their endorsements? How long have they been teaching? That kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could definitely, since our MyCE system is custom built for us, we could easily add fields for these things and then put that you must also have documented evidence that shows this in form of a resume or transcript. So we could have a field that says number of years teaching high school. Another one says number of years teaching AP courses taught. So you could just kind of skim through and it's like, okay, they've got this. Let me just verify really quick on the resume. Okay, yeah, it looks like it's there. So we could do something like that if that's kind of what you're thinking. Okay.
I was saying that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. Amber, do you want to make a note of that? And then send it to me? That would be fantastic. I won't add it on just yet because we'll just wait and see kind of how this plays out. And if it gets to where it's like Ann Milner clarifies and says you have or you haven't met the intent, and then she adds additional things. Once that gets like set in stone, that's probably a good time to add those things. Or we could do it. We could do it for next year. I don't know. What do you all think? Do you want me to add some of these things like immediately? Because we could probably have them added in the next couple of weeks if we wanted to. Or do we wait until we're certain which criteria are going to stick?
In the MyCE, so then if again, the example is, you know, the institution or college says we're not going to allow this instructor because, is there a no, we'd like to appeal because, so in the example you said, because of their time teaching AP or this, and this. Is that built in there? And then if so, please attach.
No, so so the high school will see that we've denied an instructor, but the associate deans, as they review them, can put comments, and there's a prompt there that just says like, just give a brief description of like what they would need in order to qualify. So they can see those comments. And then if the high school reads them and they're like, oh, you know, actually they do have this, I just forgot to include that transcript, they can reach out to me or somebody in our office and we'll reset it.
So is there a way in the MyCE to attach those things and make it more efficient?
Come in front and I have a feeling that if things change about this law, it won't be all of it. Clearly somebody's not happy with how we're approving the concurrent law. So something will be the same.
Mhm.
And I would rather just have the information to start with. But I'm only one out of our many, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can look at it. We'll evolve as it plays out. I'd say maybe let's see if it looks like we're capturing the intent with what they proposed in the concurrent enrollment contract. And if it looks like that's going to be solid, we can add that. Because I mean, it's adding it to MyCE is we have to reprogram the system to do a few things. So that's going to be a little work, and I don't want to do an overhaul that we're going to have to change again in a few months. So we'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll try to make this as easy and as efficient as possible. And yeah, but it does make me nervous, and it also makes me nervous because if this does become the qualifying criteria, you could have a large number of instructors suddenly qualifying. That puts a load on the academic departments and liaisons that we have to figure out what can we handle capacity wise. So, okay, all right, we'll move on from that. But if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me. Or reach out to legal counsel. I mean, they're going to have much better guidance on how the institution wants to interpret this than I will.
I mean, so each of us individually reaching out to.
That could be a mess.
And one.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I did reach out to legal counsel right in the beginning. Our legal counsel, I reached out to Tim Sheehan and I reached out to Yushi and said, how are we supposed to do this? And I also included Clifton and Brett as well. And then Yushi's like, well, we'll just take care of it. Sid said, don't worry, let Yushi interpret this for the entire system. We'll have legal counsel review it and the CAOs and decide how they want to interpret this. So I would say probably the best thing would be to talk to your deans and then let them consult with Clifton, and hopefully it'll be sort of broad. How is Salt Lake Community College gonna interpret this? Yeah, because it is. It's law and it can be interpreted a bunch of different ways. So, okay, let's talk about adding new concurrent enrollment courses. And if you need to get up and like stand up or anything, like usually if I'm sitting in a meeting like after 45 minutes, like I'm like, okay, I'm done. I got to stand up and move or dance or something like that. I can play some music if you want. We can have a little dance. So adding new courses to the concurrent enrollment list. Question: to create a new concurrent offering takes about 1.5 years. Only requires that we make the decision and announce its availability to the high schools, is primarily the decision of Salt Lake Community College. All right. And the answer is, it takes about a year and a half. So I'll talk about the decision, although that decision C is kind of true-ish as well. Well, it really is, it is true. I guess it could be A or C, but I'll explain that. So the process of creating a new concurrent enrollment course. So like I said before, for a concurrent course to exist, there has to be an existing high school course and an existing Salt Lake Community College course whose curriculum aligns at least 80% or 90% for academic courses and 80% for CTE courses. The way that the process works is that on about November 1st, we submit a form to the state office that basically it's got so it's got all the college information about the course, the syllabus, the learning outcomes, everything. And then there's a table that has the USBE strands and standards. Strands and standards is what they call, or what we would call, our learning outcomes. So they have their strands and standards listed. Then we go over and say, here is how we cover that same information. So in the second column. So we're basically aligning to the high school course, which a lot of people have said, well, that seems kind of backwards. They're really saying, well, if you want to teach this college course in the high school, then we want to be sure that you're covering everything that the students need to get high school credit, because concurrent is high school credit on the high school transcript and college credit on the college transcript. So they're just doing their checks and balances to make sure the high school requirements are covered. So we do that alignment, we submit it to the state, and then the Utah State Board of Education curriculum specialist reviews it. If they say, yep, this looks like it's a match, they approve it, and then it's good to offer for the next academic year. The way that the course, the idea comes about to create a course is usually it can be either Salt Lake Community College or it can be the high school that says, we would really like to offer this course. So they might have a high school course and say, is there anything at the college that aligns to this? Because we think it'd be a really good college course to offer. So they can take the initiative or we can take the initiative. And then ultimately the decision is ours to say, yeah, we want to continue pursuing this, or no, we don't. That said, the decision can't be just Salt Lake Community College to say, we're going to offer this course concurrent enrollment. And then we find out that there is zero interest and there's no course alignment like that. So we don't really have full autonomy in saying this is going to be all of our course offerings. It has to be a mutual process between the high schools and Salt Lake Community College to create a course. But that's the process for creating a concurrent enrollment course. And there's a page on our website that that will walk you through step by step how you do that. So relatively simple and straightforward. Questions on creating new concurrent enrollment courses? Okay, so now I want to talk about setting up course rules. So we have courses. What kind of rules could we establish? So question, can we limit classes to juniors or seniors only? All right, the answer was true, but now it's false. So it used to be that we could set those limitations, and you can thank Anna Milner again for passing some legislation, or actually, no, this was Representative Pulsifer that passed this one. So a little while back, it used to say that concurrent enrollment is eligible or is available to 11th and 12th graders with 9th and 10th graders by exception. And then she adjusted it because what happened is someone from somebody's service region, it may have been ours, it may have been Weaver's, went to her and said, well, you know what? I've got a brilliant 9th grader that is a mathematical genius, and he placed into math 1210 and wants to take that course. But because he's a 9th grader, he has to go through and fill out all this appeal paperwork to go through the exception process. And that's not fair. And she said, that isn't fair. Like if a student is ready, they shouldn't have to go through this process. So she changed the law that says concurrent enrollment is available to 9th through 12th graders, no exceptions. We continued to just put on our website that it was limited. And then Sid later called me and said, you can't do that. But now what we do is have recommended grade limits. So we reach out, on our website, we post this as recommended for seniors only, recommended for juniors only. And for the most part, the high schools respect that. But now they have the ability, if they have a student they feel is ready for Humanities 1100 or English 20 or English 1010, then they can go ahead and take it as a ninth grader, which rarely happens. Go ahead. So no more appeals for those grade class status limits. Yeah, go for it. Yes, so CAM courses still have prerequisites for CE courses. Yeah, you can still have test score prerequisites. You can have other course prerequisites, and they do have to meet those prerequisites. So that is absolutely required. Is that what you're asking, Ashley, or were you wondering about some other things in terms of prerequisites?
No, that's what I was asking. Like right now, I know that there's some courses that have like, you have to have taken English 9 before you can enroll in this class, which basically prevents freshmen from taking it unless they have credit for English 9. So is that still allowed, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. And in fact, like English, so because English was one of the big ones that had, it was like seniors only. And what they did allow us to do, which to me seems a little backwards, but the high school curriculum is like 9th grade English, 10th grade English, 11th grade English, and 12th grade English. And English 1010, I think, aligns to 12th grade English. So they did allow us to say that they have to complete English 11 before they can take English 1010, which, I mean, having a prerequisite of a high school course for a college course seems a little backwards, but that allowed us to like really limit seniors in English 1010. So,
well, that's
yeah,
why I was asking, because the communication classes are technically English 11 or English 12. And
okay.
so if a 9th grader is taking it, they really shouldn't get English. They shouldn't really get 9th grade English credit for it, because that's not how the class aligns.
That's exactly right.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that now we're not allowed to say only juniors and seniors, that I can put those prereqs on the communication classes, because they shouldn't be getting 9th grade English credit for something that's 11th and 12th grade English credit.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I imagine that like a high school kid could probably like accelerate somehow and have completed 9th and 10th and 11th grade English, like in their 9th grade or 10th grade year. And so they're moving into 12th grade English, even though they're a junior. I don't know how frequently that happens, because I'm not super familiar with high school courses and how that all works, but yeah. Okay, next question. We can require that 100% of students in a concurrent enrollment class be enrolled with Salt Lake Community College, or we can allow them to have both students who are getting college credit in the class and students who are earning high school credit only. Is that true or false? Okay, the answer is that it's true. So yes, we can set those requirements. Typically, what happens is most academic courses require that 100% of the kids in the class be in there for concurrent credit. So they're getting both high school and college credit. And then usually it's the CTE classes where they allow a mix. So you might have, in some classes, it might be 5 out of 40 that are getting concurrent credit, and others it might be 35 out of 40, or it might even be, I've seen classes where one kid in the class is getting concurrent enrollment credit. So we can say that this is going to be 100%, or we can say that we do allow mixed enrollments. So the reason why they do that in a lot of CTE classes is because there's only a few that are really interested in getting the college credit sometimes, or they have a hard time recruiting. I don't know what the exact reasons are. But one thing that we have asked is that high schools, one thing they've done in the past is taken one section and put 4 class periods in that section. So you'll have like 25 enrollments, in 4 periods, but it's in one section. We've asked the high schools not to do that so that the academic departments can see if there's this class that only has 1 student in there that's getting concurrent, the teacher is still expected to teach our curriculum according to our standard and our level of rigor for every student in that class, whether they're getting credit or not. Some teachers can do phenomenal at that, others not so much. And so forcing the high schools to have a single section per period allows you to see if there are any that you need to flag, and then go check to see if they're doing a good job at delivering the curriculum across the board to every student in that class, whether they're getting credit or not. So that is a tool, and I'll show you where you can access that in My CE, that the liaisons may want to look at and just check in on. If after a year or two, they're like the instructor is doing phenomenal, maybe you don't have to worry about it as much anymore. But it's probably something you want to check, because I have seen classes back when I was a liaison years ago that you would go in and it's like, oh yeah, well, you know, all the kids are just like being crazy and just not doing anything. And then there's one kid over here on the computer. It's like, oh, well, he's doing the college class and I give him extra assignments and that kind of thing. And then the rest of the kids are playing video games and doing whatever. And I'm like, that is not a college experience, and it's distracting to that one kid. Like, this is not creating the culture. So, and if you get all these, if you get like 50% are doing it for credit and 50% are not, then after you get through the class, those that didn't do it for credit, that might change them to say, wow, like if the instructor at the end says, you all did a college class, even though you didn't get credit for it and you were successful, hopefully that would then propel them on to try concurrent enrollment and then move on to college later. So any questions on setting rules for the classes? Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about Canvas. So new rules just came out regarding Canvas. I sent out an announcement to all of you, all of the high school instructors. This came down from USHE, and I pushed back hard on it because, and I'll explain why. So what I pushed back on, so basically we had a concurrent directors meeting, and Sid brought up, well, why don't we just force all the high school instructors to use the USHE institution's Canvas? And they're all like, yeah, that'd be great, because then we have more control over it. And I said, have you talked to the instructors yet? Because there are some challenges in using our system that create all kinds of issues. There's some benefits of using Canvas, but there are also some problems associated with using our Canvas. And I was the only one who expressed any concern, so they went ahead and pushed it out and said, this is what we're going to do. I didn't say anything, and then Julie Hartley sent me an email and said, hey, somebody said you're not forcing everybody to use this. So send out the email. The benefits are, it's a lot easier to access their Canvas for the liaisons and to go in and see what's going on in the class. That's nice. The students then have to familiarize themselves with a different Canvas system. And if they're using our Canvas to communicate, students learn that communication system. When they matriculate over to Salt Lake Community College, they're already familiar with it. It's one less thing they have to figure out. The downsides, if a student isn't registered at Salt Lake Community College, they have no access to our Canvas. And sometimes the registration usually begins the first day of class. So that means between the first day and maybe 3 to 4 weeks, students are trying to get registered. They have no access. So they can't get in and access their content sometimes. And if you're using inclusive access and all the exams are administered in Canvas, that student's falling behind. So that's a problem. The other issue is with mixed classes. You got some students in there that are not Salt Lake Community College students. They never have access to the class. So how do you create a consistent experience where they're supposed to be engaging in the same material if they don't have access? And then the last one is double grade entry. So they enter everything in Canvas. Well, that doesn't speak to the high school system. So now they have to port all those grades over to the high school Canvas, re-enter them all so that it can be dumped into their student information system and so parents can see and all that kind of stuff. So plus side, downsides, but that's the reality of Canvas and what the requirements are. So anyway, what I've encouraged liaisons is just be mindful of that. Like, try not to be too dictatorial in they do have to use Canvas, but in how they use it, there are some challenges they're going to face, and they really need more your support than forcing them to try to do something that they really are having a hard time doing. So, and I've got a lot of emails back from instructors that say, yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but we'll do it. And then there's a few that are really scared of the problems it's going to cause, because I mean, high school teachers are pretty overworked. Okay, so I'm going to skip that one because I just gave you the answer. Okay, NACEP accreditation. Or I guess I should pause. Any questions on Canvas first? Okay, NACEP accreditation. So NACEP accreditation, NACEP is the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, and they're a professional organization, but they also do accreditation. Their accreditation is not like Northwest accreditation. If we don't accredit through NACEP, then everything goes on as normal. But what the way that I see their accreditation is it's a list of best practices that have been identified by all these institutions across the country that say, if you want a quality concurrent enrollment program where you have academic integrity with the courses that are being taught, these are the standards that you should follow. So let me walk through what it requires of academic departments. So again, another question here. So our NACEP concurrent enrollment accreditation requires which of the following? High school CE instructors meet the same qualifications as adjunct faculty on our campus unless otherwise mandated by state law. That the high school instructors cover the SLCC curriculum in full using the same syllabus, learning materials, and textbook, etc. High school instructors receive training on course content the first time they're approved to teach. That high school instructors receive annual discipline-specific professional development, and that high school faculty visit, or that college faculty visit and observe high school instructors teaching the SLCC courses they are approved to teach in the instructor's classroom, or all of the above. The answer is all of the above. So those are the requirements. Those are the quality standards. Now, I will bring up that some liaisons have expressed concern over the load placed on them for doing this work, and I understand. My question maybe for you as associate deans, academic administrators, is there any of these? Because like I said, the repercussions of not being credited with NACEP are zero, other than it establishes us as a quality program nationwide, and helps us to align ourselves with best practices, and we get feedback from other people across the nation. So that's the benefit. But since it doesn't really have a negative impact if we don't accredit, are there any of these standards here, anything that's listed here that you say, I think we could do away with that and still maintain the integrity of the course? Because if we could figure out a way to lighten the load for faculty, that would be wonderful. Unfortunately, I think that really these things, because we talked about, the idea of what if we were to hire somebody who could do that for the whole academic affairs area? Well, nobody is an expert in all these different content areas. So the reality is only faculty can do this work. Like that's the reality. So the question, go ahead.
Serve as liaison for concurrent enrollment. It would be great if they could have maybe assigned time or stipend that helps them, because it is a lot of work. And I think that these standards are not that bad, actually, because like we went through accreditation a few years ago and we were dinged on so many things. So, and we feel like because we went through it and had to look at their standards and what we met and what we didn't meet, we were able to improve so much. So, yeah.
That's great feedback. Yeah, we do pay them the $40 per hour for the work that they do. But the idea of some release time or something like that is a good idea, just to take one thing off their plate. Depending on, I guess, really it boils down to, I know that the president's vision of concurrent enrollment is that it's a very important part of the college, and it's something that the community demands, and it's really here to stay. So the question is, like with the other responsibilities that faculty do, would release time be a reasonable thing, or does what they're doing that they're released from, is that more important, do we feel, than the concurrent enrollment observations? And how much time does it take? So how much release time would they need? So there's a lot of questions to answer. But I like the idea of potentially having some release. Yeah, that's great. Good. Any other thoughts on accreditation or any questions on these different standards? I think most of you are pretty familiar with these, and I don't want to go into too much detail because, I mean, this is more for the liaisons going through what all that means. But those are the main things that are required by NACEP accreditation and the work that liaisons are asked to do, the faculty liaisons. And the reality, I mean, let's see, the first one, I mean, that's the instructor application process. They don't really they may review that if you've decided you want them to review it, or you may just review it as the associate dean. Covering the same curriculum. So that's just an expectation that we lay out, and that's they basically review the syllabus. And reviewing a syllabus, I mean, if you're a faculty and you're super familiar with the syllabus, it doesn't take that long to review a high school syllabus and just find the main flags. And if they're all using a standard syllabus, it's all there. It takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes per syllabus, and most faculty probably have between 1 and 10 instructors at the most that they're working with. And then the training, the one time, takes a couple hours a year. The annual professional development, a minimum of 1 hour up to 2 hours plus prep time. And then the visit is about 2.5 hours total. So, okay, now I want to talk about non-compliance, and this one's important. First of all, question, if a high school instructor is not following our curriculum or meeting our standards, there is nothing we can do. True or false? I'm glad I hear laughing, because I have heard faculty and some administrators before say, well, they're not doing what we've asked them to do, but I mean, there's nothing we can really do about it. And I just go like that. So there is something that we can do in terms of non-compliance. And the process works like this. So if a liaison is out doing an observation, or they're reviewing a syllabus, or they do training and someone doesn't show up, then all they need to do is identify what the problem is. So if they're doing a visit and there's a problem, they meet with the instructor and say, hey, I noticed your class, you did this great, but this was an issue, like you mistaught this, or you haven't covered this, or whatever. And we need to see you do that. I'll give you until like the end of the month to show me evidence that that's happening. And then if that's not happening by the end of the month, they just need to reach out to me and say, hey, I met with this instructor, this was the problem, they're not doing it. Or it could even be, I've tried to respond to it or get this instructor to respond to me and they don't. And so you reach out to me, and then I email the instructor and the principal and say, hey, here's the issue, this is what happened, this is what we've observed. The liaison gave them this time frame to make a change, they haven't made a change yet. So if a change is not made by this time, then either the instructor will no longer schedule classes for them in the future until things change, if it's something that they can and are willing to change. If it's something major, then they're just done. Or if it's at the beginning of the semester, then we may cancel the class and drop all the students from the class. And then that's it. And then at that point, either they make the change and things go on and it's great, or we move forward with the consequence. So the corrective action process is that simple. And I just had a thought too about some of these rules with this is going off on a tangent, but it takes us back to the instructor qualifications and the state law with SB 335. So one of the things that Sid mentioned, because math was highly legislated years and years ago, and it basically said that an instructor would qualify with a level 4 secondary math endorsement. And Suzanne had denied a couple of instructors because they couldn't pass the final exam for the class they were going to teach. And she was told, you cannot deny them, like they're approved. But what they said they could do is, once they're approved, if you go out and observe problems in the class, then you can withdraw approval. So we do have that ability. So if it boils down in the future to we have to approve this lesser standard, we keep an eye on them. And if you've got standardized curriculum and tests and the students are failing miserably, then that's something that we could potentially pull them from teaching the class. So we do have the ability to do that. The corrective action process just made me think about that. Any questions on corrective action? Okay, and I usually go through this process once or twice a year because there are issues that happen out there. Okay, making changes to CE courses. So I want to talk about the timeline and the process. So by USHE policy, we are required to give high schools 3 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, or 3 years to implement a major change such as textbook changes, instructor credential changes, major curricular changes, etc. What do you think? Okay. So the answer is 1 year. Nice job. Okay, so yeah, if we make any major changes, we do need to give them notifications. And let me give you an idea. Oh, I got one more question. The best time to announce a major change for the upcoming academic year is when? January 1st, July 1st, or October 1st? Oh, it didn't? Okay. Okay, yeah, the answer is C, is probably the best time. That's the fall registration has wound down and they haven't started ramping up for the other. That's a slower time, but also some high schools beginning November or December start building their boards, their scheduling boards for the next academic year. So if we make a change or decide to cancel a course or see it all, or do anything major like that, and we send that out, even like as late as like December or in January, we usually get a lot of panic because they've built their board and stuff. They're going to cancel this class, and now they have to rearrange their board, but also figure out what are they going to do with this instructor now who is teaching 3 sections of this course, and now they're not. Or for budgetary reasons, if we say we're changing the textbook and they purchase classroom sets for their students to use, and they've already allocated the money. Now they have no money to spend and they're like, how are we supposed to do this? So if we're going to make a major change, then we need to give them at least a year so that it doesn't disrupt the scheduling, the board, and other things that are going on out there. So October 1st is generally the best time. Mid-September to mid-October, probably a good time to let them know that this change is coming down the road. Okay, next one, concurrent on campus and FERPA law. So for those of you who don't know what concurrent enrollment or concurrent on campus is, that's where we take classes here on our campus and we open up seats for concurrent enrollment students. The idea was that the program is there to fill vacant seats. So nobody's going to be sitting there in there anyway. Let's fill it. And years ago, I think it was after Nate Sutherland was around, and then he moved on. And I talked to Katrina and said, could you run the data and see if it's actually doing that? And she did run the data and she said, yes, it is filling seats. It's not taking seats from tuition paying adult students. So most concurrent on campus classes, 50% of the seats are available to concurrent students and 100% of the seats are available to adult students. So if an adult student comes in, they can grab all the seats and there's nothing for a concurrent student. If a concurrent student comes in, they can only take 50% and there's still plenty for the adult students. That's how the rules are set up. And we have a few online classes where we set it to like 5% of the seats are available to concurrent students and 100% are available to adult students. So that's concurrent on campus. So question is, high school students who take CE classes on an SLCC campus are treated the same as adult students in every way. True or false? I think we lost all of our texters. What do you think? Verbally, true or false? Okay, that's a tricky one. It's kind of in between there. The every way is the key. So not in every way, in most ways. So the way that that high school students are treated differently is they have a different registration process, and they cannot be added by faculty because of that registration process. Because a concurrent student, in order to participate in on campus, they have to be a junior or a senior. Freshmen and sophomores, not allowed, because I mean, it's already like they're young enough, 11th or a 12th grader. And if they hook up with somebody, some 25-year-old who's, you know, finds them interesting and they're like, oh, somebody older likes me, that could be a problem. It could be a really real problem. That's a problem with any minor. But the 9th and 10th graders, we just didn't feel like that was the best environment for them to really be hopping onto. Plus, they really need to focus on high school requirements, 9th and 10th grade. So we limit them to 11th and 12th graders. They have to have at least a 2.5 high school GPA. And there are other high school rules they have to meet. They can't take more classes than they can handle with their high school load. So the high school coordinator reviews all that stuff to make sure they meet the requirements. They submit a request, and then we unlock the class if they meet the requirements for them to register. So that's how the registration process works. So we've told faculty that if a student shows up in your class and says, oh, well, can you like administratively add me? We've told them do not do that, because then they're bypassing that whole system and they could get themselves in trouble. We also have students that it's like, I'm going to take English 1010 or 2010, and I'm going to use that to fulfill my high school English graduation requirement. And then they fail, and now they're not going to graduate from high school. So those are some things we have to monitor. In terms of FERPA, so let's see. So here's the FERPA question. Because concurrent enrollment students are minor, students' parents can request information about the students' performance in their SLCC classes. What do you think? Oh, hey, somebody's got it. Awesome. Yep, that is correct. So the answer is false. Concurrent students, even though they're minors, once they become concurrent enrollment students, they are treated the same as adult students in terms of FERPA. So if they want their parents to access any of their academic records, they have to fill out one of those FERPA release forms and have the parent's information on there. So, and I've had faculty reach out before and say, I got a parent bothering me. It's like, tell them you can't share anything unless they got that FERPA release. So, and we don't advertise that because we don't want parents bugging faculty. So it's extremely rare that I've ever heard of a concurrent student requesting a FERPA release because their parents are demanding information from one of our faculty. So we don't have to share it. Okay, another question. I think this may be the last one, and then we're done. So, I was going to show you my CE too. We'll do that. So concurrent enrollment instructors should be provided with edited instructor materials or edited materials instructional. It should have been instructional materials if those materials could be offensive to minor concurrent enrollment students or their parents. True or false? Yep, that's it. The answer is false. So they concurrent enrollment students are treated like adult students. They use the same materials, and in fact, there's a parent participate or a student participation form that the parents sign that it mentions that some classes may contain materials of this nature, and student is expected to engage objectively in the material. So the parents are aware of it. There was a law that came out about sensitive materials, but I think there's another part of statute that says that concurrent materials are exempt from those. So we have no obligation to edit those, although I wouldn't encourage departments to like intentionally pick, very offensive stuff just for the sake of offending, because that would not go over well. If there is an alternative, then you can approve that, but it's completely up to you to decide if you want to provide that, because I mean, it doesn't apply to just concurrent students. There are adult students too that there are materials that they would like to opt out of. So at the high school, I think they also have like what do they call it? A waiver or a consent form that the parent or student can sign for a specific class if teachers decide to use that to say, hey, just so you know, there's going to be some nude photography in this Art 1010 class. So your kid's going to have to engage in it, and then they have to sign it to be in the class. Yeah, go for it. Okay, Ashley, do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask?
Oh, sorry, I don't even, now you kind of passed it. I don't remember what my question was. I changed devices, so now I don't know where the chat is.
Okay.
It was just a simple question, about the FERPA. Like the high school instructors at the high school don't have FERPA because they're not college instructors, correct? I was just making sure that that's true.
Yeah, that's correct. And so because it's high school and a college class, we can even send the grades to the high school and they can share it because the grade has to match. So the high school does not have anything that we don't have in terms of information about the student and their performance in class in the high school. So they can share all that high school information, which is the same as the college information. So usually when a parent calls our office and they're like, I've got a question about this, that, or whatever, we say, well, we can't really share it with you, but the high school can, so go talk to your high school. And then the parents accept that, or they get mad and say, well, my kid's a minor and you should blah, 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 blah.
The difference is access to records. Parents have it at the high school. So access of other parties, what you can and cannot disclose, all those sort of things.
Yeah.
High school instructors do respect that.
That's a good point. Yep.
And parents, like you said, don't get access to our choice
They don't?
pages, and so they might have that.
Yeah, that is true. So with Canvas, like what we're telling the teachers is that one thing they can do if they want, because they can double enter all those grades. But one teacher who's using our Canvas right now said, I just tell them, if you want to see the grade, you have to talk to your kid and have them log into Canvas and show you right there. I'm like, I bet that creates some interesting dynamics in some homes. So, okay. Last thing, I believe that MyCE. So MyCE, so is a misspelling of mice, is a website, is a program management system that gives each CE partner access to the tools and data they need, or is kind of like MySLCC. What do you think? Going with C, yep. C it is, yep, that's right. A little bit of D flavor, exactly. So that is MyCE, custom-built program management tool. Every user has access to stuff that's relevant to their role in the system. So what I'm going to do is just jump over really quickly to MyCE and show you some of the tools that exist for associate deans and academic administrators. Let's see. Let's go to, and this will be a really quick run through and we'll be done. So, and if you don't have access to MyCE as an academic administrator, you log in, it looks like more like a liaison account, then you can let me know. And then we can adjust that. So log in and we will go into, choose somebody's account to jump over into. How about we go into Barbie's. Okay, so as an academic administrator, you've got I'll go through each of these really quick. So view offered classes is going to show you all of the concurrent enrollment classes that have been scheduled. This is where you could go into the view details and you could see how many students are registered in that class if you allow mixed classes. So you might say, reach out to your liaison and say, there's only one kid in this class, 3 kids in this one, 5 in this one. I'm a little worried that the instructor might be teaching to the high school kids instead of the college kids. Can you go check it out? So that's where you can do that. You can also see the period that it runs. This is very similar to the liaison view. And then if you go into the view details, you'll see the registrations. Eventually the grade shows up once the grade is entered in there. So you can see if there's any grade inflation going on, you think. And then the uploaded documents. So a copy of the syllabus that's been uploaded, which you as the academic administrator can review. The instructors section will show you a list of all of the instructors that have been approved to teach the courses that that you are over. I'm not sure why this is. I'm gonna have to reach out to, let me refresh that and see what happens. Huh, interesting. Hey, Amber, can you make a note that in the AD module, it's not showing a list of instructors? I'll reach out to Avi and see if we can fix that. So this will show you a list of all the instructors. You can click on it. What you can do here, when it shows you the list, is it'll show you if they've completed their new teacher training. This is their concurrent onboarding, where we go over some basic information about SLCC systems, what the expectation is to teach the college's content, not the high school content, and the liaison model. We go over the basic foundations of concurrent enrollment and teaching concurrent enrollment. And then it'll show if they've completed annual professional development. And if you click on their record, it will show if they've completed content training on the course content. So all of their training and everything is going to be documented here in the instructors. So you can check and see if there's anybody that's still missing training if you want to. The college experience evaluations are the evaluations performed by one of our 4 college experience liaisons. So you can go into these at any time you want, click on the details and see what kind of feedback and insights the college experience liaisons are providing. It also shows you the name of them here. The SLCC syllabus, this is the copy of the college's syllabus for the course. If you go in here and you download it and you're like, oh, this is outdated by 5 years, then you can actually upload a new copy of it. I think, well, actually, it doesn't look like associate deans can, but the liaisons can go in and upload a new copy, the latest copy of the syllabus. And we send out reminders for liaisons to do that, usually once or twice a year, just to make sure that's accurate. Once that's uploaded, all of the high school coordinators, the instructors, and liaisons and everybody is able to see, access, and download that syllabus, so that if they want to see what the standard is, or some new teachers interested in teaching the course, they can check it out here. Instructor applications, you can't approve instructor applications here, but you'll see all the applications that have been submitted. So if you ever want to check to see what an application contained, what your comments were, what their credentials were, if you need to review that, you can review that right here. This will show you a list under the view liaisons of the different liaisons in your department who are assigned and which courses they've been assigned to. So if you ever want to make a change, if you look at this and say, oh, well, Tyson is no longer going to be the liaison, we're going to assign it to somebody else, so I need to have that updated, you can do that there. Course evaluations. So right here, you can see all of the student course evaluations that have been performed by students. So if you wanted to download those, I think if you click on course evaluation, oh, that's not working either. Amber, you want to make a note of the course evaluations in the AD module? Anyway, click here, it would download an Excel file that has all of the student feedback on that instructor. The reports section, so a lot of the things we looked at, like view offered classes, it would be a pain to click and go through every class to see what the enrollments are. So you can actually click on any of these fields, and Amber, make note we had an error come up too on the reports. You can click on any of these. It was under reports, so it looks like some of the reports are missing, and I need to make sure I add those. So there is a report called classes or class section export, and it'll give you all kinds of data about the class. You can filter it by enrollments, and then you can identify classes that way. So this just allows you to dump data from the system. And then the last thing are the work reports, and the work reports are the reports submitted by the liaisons for the work that they're doing. So you can go into this anytime and just check out the details, see what your faculty are being paid for, and then click on the view details, and it'll show you nothing. Amber, add another note on that one. Sorry, we got some bugs showing up. We haven't spent a lot of time in the administrators module, and obviously administrators haven't either. That was in the work reports. So.
And it'll show up on the display.
Yep, and it would show up all the details, everything that was submitted there. The notes they added would all be included, the instructors that it was done for. That's all listed in work reports. And that is everything, I think. Everything from IC, everything else. So any questions that you might have regarding concurrent enrollment. Hopefully I answered every question that you could possibly have. I think we went over a lot of stuff. Right here.
Actually, funny, because I really want to build ESL's webpage like yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering who.
Yeah, so with this one, we actually hired a company to design the template for us. And so they built it, and then Mark Fossen helped us to integrate everything. It's a template, so it could be copied over. It's really just Mark Fossen's the college webmaster. He's the one who could help build it. And then we built it, we used to have it designed a little bit differently, but then we decided like it needs to be completely student and parent centric. So everything, all these major buttons are for parents. We added the Spanish translation just a couple of years ago. That we did, and any of you could do it. We used Trusted Translations. It's a company. We just copied the content, sent it over to them. They sent us a translation in like 5 days, and then we had it uploaded. And the hard thing is maintaining it. Luckily, I speak Spanish, so I can go through when we need to make a change and tweak it. But yeah, so.
Copy this, because it was such a great day for our transfer student service.
Oh, did you? Okay.
We did. So if you look at the website, and Charlotte Smith is our contact in marketing.
Oh, nice.
We love the work. It's right. It's fantastic. And it's got it right. So yeah, we already borrowed this stuff.
Yeah, and it's so.
Awesome. I'm glad.
It's like inclusive of all parties that need access to it, so.
So exactly what Brandon just said. Yeah, we're looking in marketing, your outreach to institution marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, yeah, for our students, they just are like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
Uh-huh. Cool. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Well, hopefully it gives you a really good foundation. If you do have any other questions along the way, like you can always reach out to me. And yeah. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing here.